University. And I must tell you that before we start, that we've had many folks on to talk about the athletic program at Tennessee State University, and you're simply following a great tradition. But first, let's have you to talk about Dr. Vivian Fuller, to talk about your background and give us some information about your education and some of the things that eventually led you to the situation you're in now.
Well, thank you. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank you for having me on the show. I have been in Tennessee now a little over 2 months, and I took the job as athletic director on October 1. I came here from Chicago, Illinois, in which I served as director of intercollegiate athletics at Northeastern Illinois University, which is on the north side of Chicago. Prior to that, I was at Indiana University of Pennsylvania as associate athletic director, and prior to that, I was at North Carolina A&T as assistant athletic director. I went right up through the ranks of teaching, coaching, and director to the directorship. I grew up in rural North Carolina. I'm a sharecropper's daughter and have 4 sisters and 1 brother. So I am a very goal-oriented person and very task-oriented. And one of the things that I decided, if I was going to be in higher education, then I was going to be the best in higher education, and I was going to be the best in whatever jobs that I attained. And that's how I decided that I wanted to pursue athletics administration.
And so eventually you ended up at Tennessee State University as the athletic director. Tell me, Dr. Fuller, what did you know about, coming, of course, from North Carolina, you certainly knew something about Tennessee State University, but what did you know about Tennessee State University before you became involved with this as an athletic director?
The one thing that stands out,
image,
that stands out to me was the Olympians. Wilma Rudolph, I knew of Tennessee State. John Merritt, I knew was a part of this great ham. Ralph Boston, I knew was a part of this great ham. And also, I remember Ed Temple as a child growing up and that wonderful 4x4 relay team. And that's more about what I knew about the institution. I knew Tennessee State University had a very strong sports tradition, had a very strong sports history. I knew a great number of Olympians had come out of here. But as far as the nuts and bolts of Tennessee State University, I learned them as I went through the interviewing process.
Now, what have you learned about the athletic program at Tennessee State University in terms of the nuts and bolts of it, your responsibilities and your tasks and the things that are laid out before you?
I think as a new person coming into any program, I think one thing that you have to look is from a manager standpoint, and I consider myself a manager. I also consider Tennessee State University's athletics program a small entity of the university. It is almost like an independent contractor, is the way I see it. One of the things that my role is first to come in and assess the program. Second, evaluate personnel and see where we are. And when I say personnel, I'm speaking of coaches and student athletes. Thirdly is fundraising, which is a very strong effort because I feel very strongly that in order to move us into the next millennium, external funding is the way that's going to help move this program over the curve. And the fourth component is community outreach. I think it's very important for us as an institution of higher education to be out in the community, be out speaking to children, to be out speaking and working. I've been here less than 2 months and I've spoken to over 3,000 people already. And it's every day of the week out in the community talking and telling stories about Tennessee State, trying to restore that strong sports tradition that exists.
Well, what do you find the response to the folks that you meet? I mean, when you go from these various places, how do they receive you and what are they saying to you about what ought to be done or what could be done and et cetera?
One of the things that I find out that's very encouraging is the community is very supportive. It's almost as if the town has enveloped me. There's a lot of curiosity right now. People want to know who is Vivian Fuller, what makes her tick, why does she think that she can handle this job? When we look at the NCAA, there's over 1,000 institutions within the NCAA approximately, and I think about 986 of those are like Division I institutions. Of those 986, there's something like 9 women who run Division I programs with football, and I am the only black or African American that runs that program. So everybody wants to know, how did I get to this point?
And I think that out of just idle curiosity, why don't you explain how you got to this point in a real sense?
I think hard work, determination, being goal-oriented, and also wanting to seek out a profession in which I could excel. I wanted to be in athletics administration. I wanted to be in athletics, And what I decided once I got into the business, that I was going to eventually be athletic director. Generally, you find that women in the business do a one job stint, like the Army. You do a stint here, a stint here. Women technically stay in the same place because the way the power structure is based, that once a woman gets into a position, that's the only position that she wants. I have been truly blessed, and I am truly lucky. This is my second stint as director of athletics, and it is something that was hard work and determination, and that I was committed to doing. I set my goals to do this 5 years ago. It took me about 5.5 years, and one thing that I learned in that process is even though you set your goals and you don't achieve them, you can always reset those goals. I also learned in that strong process, you use the situations that you're in to evaluate exactly what you want to do in the future. And when you get there, you have, as Andy Warhol would say, your 15 minutes. So make sure that your presentation is sharp, make sure that you do your research, you do all the technicalities it takes to come in and kind of sell yourself to this community.
You know, I think, Dr. Fuller, you've hit on one of the basic problems that we have in terms of dealing with many of our young people today, that so many of them have not been encouraged to establish goals. I mean, and I think that what you're indicating here is that you're interested in goal setting, and also you recognize the importance of having some real ambition or some real desire. And I think that what you said indicated that you thought about this 5 years. You set yourself as a goal for 5 years, and it took you 5.5 years to make it. But I think it indicates more than anything your great desire, you see, and the reason I believe that you are one of the few female athletic directors, and perhaps the only black athletic director, is because a desire to be so.
Correct.
And I think that all, and why don't you speak to that in terms of what we can say to our young people today? Because,
you know, one of the roles that I feel very strongly about is my partnership with the community. Not the rich community, not the famous community, but the community that I can relate to as it relates to race, class, and gender. I feel very, very strong that my role is to go back into these neighborhoods, to attend these churches, to attend these meetings, to go into schools and work with these kids and show them that I am no different than they are. Our similarities are the same. I grew up in rural North Carolina. They grew up in Tennessee. We have woods and trees in both places. The other thing that's important for our young people to understand is that their goals are attainable. When I was in Indiana, Pennsylvania, there was a guy named Carl Davis, and he used to tell me about growing up with the steel mills and how the people who worked in the steel mills lived up on the hill, and the people who worked in the coal mines lived at the bottom of the hill. And to me, that was a true example of how class was eradicated in that community. And one of the things that he told me as a child growing up is that he always wanted to know what was over the hill. And that's what we have to teach our young people. Always look over the hill. Always look around the hill. You know, and it's almost what we say in athletics, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you build Rome? One step at a time. And that's what we have to teach our children, that sometimes you have to wait for delayed gratification instead of immediate gratification.
And I think that's one of the real problems that we have as we, Dr. Fuller, come up to this first commercial break, which is about 35 or 40 seconds. And I don't want to raise another question to get you started and have to interrupt you again. But I think, but I certainly would agree with you that the most important thing is goal setting. And so many of our young people today simply become discouraged for whatever reason. They don't have the right encouragement. They don't have an opportunity to meet people like yourself who will tell them that it can be achieved and whatnot. And I think that if we can continue that trend, then we will be quite successful. And we'll be back with you following this first commercial break.